Hi, second grade. It's Mrs. Fulop again for Charlotte's Web. There were no pictures in the last chapter, chapter 15. So if you were wondering why I didn't show them to you, there were no pictures. I forgot to tell you that. There are pictures, however, in this chapter, which is 16, off to the fair. And I hope you had a little bit of time to talk to your parents or maybe go online to learn about what a fair is. Or maybe you could write, if you've been to the fair, maybe you can write me on Dojo or Seesaw some of the experiences, some things that you did at the fair, some of your memories from the fair. I just want you to understand the concept of what a fair is. It's important that you have that background knowledge. It's called a schema, so you know what the fair is like and what Wilbur's going through and what takes place at a fair. So hopefully you have built that background knowledge, or schema, it's also called. I know a lot of you have a good schema with baseball. You know a lot about baseball, or schemas with making puppets, schemas with Legos. You know how to build Legos. You know what to do with them. So if you have a good schema at about a fair, you can picture the sights, the sounds, and the smells. So here we go with chapter 16, off to the fair. The night before the county fair, everyone went to bed early. Fern and Avery were in bed by 8 o'clock. Avery lay daydreaming about the Ferris wheel. He would love to be stopped at the top. Fern fell asleep, so she was actually dreaming that she was getting sick, going back and forth on the swings. Lurvy was in bed at 8:30. He was sleeping too. He was dreaming about the games that you play at the fair. His favorite game is where you throw a baseball at a cloth, and whoever throws it the fastest wins something. He dreamt he won a blanket. Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman were in bed at 9 o'clock. Mrs. Zuckerman was dreaming about a new refrigerator that she really needed. And Mr. Zuckerman was dreaming about the pig named Wilbur. He dreamt that Wilbur had grown until he was 116 feet long, 92 feet high, and that he won all the prizes at the fair and was covered with blue ribbons. He even had a blue ribbon tied to the end of his tail. Down in the barn cellar, the animals too went to sleep early, all except for Charlotte. Tomorrow would be fair day. Every creature planned to get up early to see Wilbur off on his great adventure. When morning came, everyone got up at daylight. The day was hot. Up the road at the Arbel's house, Fern lugged a pail of hot water to her room and used it to dump in her bathtub. Then she put on her prettiest dress because she knew that she would see her friends at the fair and she wanted to look so cute. Mr. Arbel scrubbed the back of Avery's neck, which was always dirty, wet his hair so she could comb it, and combed it down hard until it all stuck to the top of his head. He did have 6 hairs that stood straight up. Avery put on clean pants, clean shirt. His pants were blue jeans. Mr. Arbel dressed and ate breakfast and then went out and polished his truck so that it shined. He offered to drive everyone to the fair, including Wilbur. Bright and early, Lurvy put clean straw in Wilbur's crate and lifted it into the pig pen. The crate was green and had gold letters on it. It read, "Zuckerman's Famous Pig." Charlotte had her web looking fine for the occasion. Wilbur ate his breakfast slowly. He tried to look radiant without getting food all over himself. In the kitchen, Mrs. Zuckerman suddenly made an announcement. "Homer," she said to her husband, "I'm going to give that pig a bath with buttermilk." "What?" asked Mr. Zuckerman. "A buttermilk bath. My grandmother used to bathe her pig in buttermilk when it was dirty. I just remembered that." "But Wilbur's not even dirty," said Mr. Zuckerman proudly. "Oh, he's filthy," especially behind his ears, said Mrs. Zuckerman. Every time Lurvy feeds him, the food runs down around his ears, and then it dries and gets crusty. He also has a smudge where he lays in the manure. He doesn't lay in manure anymore, said Mr. Zuckerman. He lays in clean straw. Well, he's still dirty, and I'm going to give him a bath. Mr. Zuckerman sat down and ate a donut. His wife went out to the shed. When she returned, she had on rubber boots, a raincoat, and carried a bucket that was full of buttermilk and a small wooden spoon. Edith, you are crazy, mumbled Mr. Zuckerman. But she didn't pay attention to him. Together, she walked to the pig pen. Mrs. Zuckerman wasted no time. She got in the pig pen at Wilbur, and she went to work. She dipped the spoon into the buttermilk, dumped it on Wilbur, and rubbed it all over him. The geese gathered around to see the fun. So did the sheep and the lamb. Even Templeton poked his head out cautiously to watch Wilbur get a buttermilk bath. Charlotte was so interested she lowered herself on a drag line so she could see better. Wilbur stood still and closed his eyes. He could feel the buttermilk trickling down his sides. He opened his mouth and some buttermilk ran in. It was delicious. He felt radiant and happy, and when Mrs. Zuckerman got through and rubbed him dry, he was the cleanest, the prettiest pig you had ever seen. He was pure white, pink around his ears and around his snout, and smooth as silk. The Zuckermans went up to change into their best clothes. Lurvy went to shave and put on a plaid shirt and a necktie. The animals were left to themselves in the barn. The 7 goslings paraded round and round their mother. Please, 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 please take us to the fair, begged a gosling. Then all 7 of them began begging to go. Please, 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 please. It made quite a racket. Children, snapped the goose, we are staying idly at home. Only Wilbur is going to the fair. Just then Charlotte interrupted. I shall go too, she said softly. I have decided to go with Wilbur. He needs me. We can't tell what may happen at the fair. Somebody's got to go along that knows how to write. And I think Templeton is the one. He better come too. I need somebody to run errands for me and do some work. I am staying right here, said the rat. I haven't the slightest interest in going to the fair. That's because you've never gone to a fair, remarked the old sheep. A fair is a paradise for a rat. Everybody spills food everywhere at the fair. A rat can creep out late at night and have a feast. In one of the horse barns, you will find oats that were dropped. In the trampled grass of the field, you will find lunch boxes that were thrown on the ground. You will find cracker crumbs, bits of donuts, and particles of cheese. On the road where you walk, after the lights go out and people have gone home and gone to bed, you will find treasure. You will find popcorn, custard, candy apples. You will find some things made out of sugar, salt, maybe some almonds, some popsicles, some ice cream cones, some sticks from lollipops. Everywhere there's food for a rat. In tents, in booths, in the barns. Why, a fair has enough disgusting leftover food for an army of rats. Templeton's eyes were blazing. Is that true? He asked. Is this true what you are telling me? I love it. It sounds wonderful to me. It is true, said the old sheep. Go to the fair, Templeton. You will find that the conditions at the fair surpass your wildest dreams. Buckets of food will be everywhere. Cans, pop cans, greasy paper bags stuffed with popcorn. That's enough, cried Templeton. Don't tell me any more. I am going. Good, said Charlotte, giving the old sheep a wink. Now then, there's no time to be lost. Wilbur will soon be put into his crate. Templeton and I must get in the crate right now and hide. The rat didn't waste a minute. He scampered over to the crate. He crawled between the slats. He pulled straw over him so he was hidden from sight. "All right," said Charlotte, "I am next." She sailed through the air. She let out a drag line. She dropped gently to the ground. Then she climbed the side of the crate and hid herself in a hole in one of the boards. The old sheep nodded. "What a cargo," she said. "That sign should say the Zuckerman's famous pig and 2 stowaways." "Look out, the people are coming, umming," shouted the gander. "Cheese it, cheese it, cheese it." The big truck with Mr. Arble at the wheel backed slowly toward the barn. Lurvy and Mr. Zuckerman walked alongside. Fern and Avery were standing in the bed of the truck, hanging on to the side. "Listen to me," whispered the old sheep. "When they open the crate and try to put you in, struggle. Don't go without a fight. Pigs always resist when they are being loaded into something." "But if I struggle, I might get dirty," said Wilbur. "Don't worry about that. Just do as I say. If you just walk into the crate without resisting, Mr. Zuckerman might think you're a little bit of a crazy pig, and he would be scared to take you to the fair because he knows no pig would want to go into a crate." Templeton poked his head through the straw. "Struggle if you must," he said, "but remember, I'm down here and I don't want to be stepped on or kicked in the face or plummeted or crashed in any way or squashed or moved about or bruised or lacerated or scarred or biffed. Just watch what you're doing, Mr. Radiant Pig, because they will shove you in." "Be quiet, Templeton," said the sheep. "Pull your head down, they're coming. Look radiant, Wilbur. Lay low, Charlotte. Talk it up, geese." The truck backed slowly to the pig pen and then it stopped. Mr. Arble turned the truck off, got out, walked around to the rear of the truck, lowered the tailgate. The geese cheered. Mrs. Arble got out of the truck. Fern and Avery jumped to the ground. Mrs. Zuckerman came walking down from her house. Everyone lined up at the fence and stood for a moment just admiring the pig. Wilbur in his beautiful green crate. Nobody realized that the crate also contained a rat and a spider. "That is some pig," said Mrs. Arble. "He's terrific," said Lurvy. "He's radiant," said Fern, remembering the day when the pig was born. "Well," said Mrs. Zuckerman, "he's clean anyway. The buttermilk bath certainly helped." Mr. Arble studied Wilbur carefully. "Yeah, he's a wonderful pig," he said. "It's hard to believe that he was the runt of the litter. You get some extra good ham and bacon out of him when it comes time to kill that pig." Wilbur heard those words and his heart almost stopped. "Wait, they're still going to kill me? I think I'm going to faint," he whispered to the old sheep who was watching. "Kneel down," whispered the old sheep. "Let the blood go to your head so you don't faint." Wilbur sank to his knees. His radiance had left him. His eyes closed. "Look," screamed Fern. "Something's happening to him." "Hey, watch me," yelled Avery, and he crawled over to the crate. "I'm a pig, I'm a pig." Avery's foot touched Templeton under the straw. "This is turning into a mess," said the rat. "What a fantastic creature boys are. How did I know that a boy was going to kick me and not a pig?" The geese saw all this going on. They saw Avery in the crate and they made some honking sounds. "Avery, get out of that crate this instant," said his mother. "What do you think you are?" I'm a pig," cried Avery. "Oink, oink, oink," and he tossed handfuls of straw into the air. "The truck is rolling away, Papa," said Fern. The truck, with no one behind the wheel, started to roll down the hill. Mr. Arble ran to the driver's seat and pulled on the emergency brake. The truck stopped. The geese cheered. Charlotte crouched and made herself as small as possible in the hole in the wood, so Avery could not see her. "Come out at once," said Mrs. Arble. Avery crawled out of the crate on his hands and knees and made faces at Wilbur. Wilbur started to faint again. "Something's happened to the pig," said Mrs. Zuckerman. "Put some water on him." "No, throw some buttermilk at him." The geese cheered. Lurvy ran for a pail of water. Fern climbed into the pen and knelt next to Wilbur. I think he's too hot. I think he has sunstroke, said Mr. Zuckerman. The heat is just too much for him. I think he died, said Avery. Come out of that pig pen immediately, cried Mrs. Arble. Avery obeyed his mother and climbed into the back of the truck so he could see better. Lurvy returned with a bucket of cold water and threw it on Wilbur. Throw some on me too, said Avery. I'm hot. Be quiet, hollered Fern. Be quiet. Her eyes were full of tears. She was worried about Wilbur. Wilbur, feeling the cold water, opened his eyes. He stood up on his feet and the geese cheered. He's up, said Mrs. Arble. I guess there's nothing wrong with him. I'm hungry, said Avery. Can I get a candy apple when I get to the fair? Wilbur's all right now, said Fern. Let's get going. I want to get there so I can ride the Ferris wheel. Mr. Zuckerman and Mr. Arble and Lurvy grabbed the pig, pushed him head first into the crate. Wilbur began to struggle. The harder the men pushed, the harder Wilbur pushed back. Avery jumped down and joined in the pushing. Wilbur kicked and thrashed and grunted. Nothing's wrong with this pig. He seems perfectly healthy to me, said Mr. Zuckerman cheerfully, and pushed his knee against Wilbur's behind. All together now, boys. 1, 2, 3, shove. With a heave, they jammed him into the crate. The geese cheered. Lurvy nailed the boards across the back of the crate so that Wilbur could not back out of it. Then, using all their strength, the men picked up the crate and heaved it into the back of the truck. They did not know that under the straw was a rat, and inside a knot was a big gray spider. All they saw were Wilbur. Everyone in, called Mr. Arble. He started the motor of the truck. The ladies climbed in the front of the truck next to him. Mr. Zuckerman, Lurvy, Fern, and Avery rode back in the bed of the truck. They hung on to the side. The truck began to move ahead. The geese cheered. The children cheered, and everyone in the truck was off to the fair. That was a long chapter. We are at the end of chapter 16. There are some pictures. This is what Mr. Zuckerman was dreaming about. He was dreaming about Wilbur being so huge. This is Mrs. Zuckerman giving Wilbur a buttermilk bath. And this is Lurvy dumping the water on Wilbur to wake him up when he fainted. And now we are done with that. So we are on page 130, and we have 184 pages left. So we are getting there. If anybody wants to subtract, and let me know. Page 130, and there's 184 pages. All right, second grade, enjoy your day.